Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance, please. Oh, the flag, sir. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I should dig that out.
I will take that. I didn't know.
I'll have to dig that out. I didn't know it could be that.
I'm ashamed I didn't.
Okay, roll call, please.
President Dom,
Here.
Vice President Everard,
Here.
Trustee Zimmerman, absent, Trustee Wazor,
Here.
Trustee Leahy,
Here.
Trustee Zurich.
Yeah.
And Trustee Zeller. Here.
Okay. Public comments number one. Anybody out there? Hearing nobody, I guess we'll move along.
Raised hands online.
No raise hands?
No.
Okay, I didn't. Gotcha, thank you. All right, let's go to review the regular meeting agenda. There's 12 items on the consent agenda. I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of those. Like I said, it's quite a few. Any questions on that? Okay. The farm lease programs, there's several different lease things. Couple of authorization for bids and travel. General use ordinance.
So if I can, on the general
Yes.
use ordinance, usually when we do an ordinance or a policy manual, we go through a 2 reading process, and you may have noted if you read the board summary. In this case, we're asking the board to waive that process because it's pretty straightforward in what needs to happen. It's for efficiency purposes to bring those payments back, the fines to our department unless it has to do with the vehicle. And Chief Stewart is here to answer any questions if you had on that particular change. And then the other, just to highlight as well, we have a request coming for our auditors with seekage, and Director Dialek had put a bunch of detail in the summary just about our proposal to enter into an agreement. Again, we went out not too long ago to do an RFP to see who would be out there. We ended up selecting seekage. Seekage had done performance of our financial audits in the past, and we're recommending to go ahead and enter another 2-year agreement with seekage.
And the fire alarm system is needed at Lost Valley. And shelter plumbing repairs at Falbro. Just all general things. Okay. Everybody, no one wants to pull anything off to the side or any questions? No, we're good there. All right, so we'll move along. And the budget, combined annual budget.
All right, so we do not have a presentation here, but what I thought I would have Director Dialek and myself, just for the board, just kind of, again, go through the process, just explain, the steps along the way, and in essence, what you're going to see in February and with our public hearing. So, want to highlight anything?
Yeah, 'cause some of the new people, it's just hard to grasp. So that's great. Thank you.
So I guess just to reflect backwards a little bit, we started the process from the board in August, and we brought forward our projection of revenues and then our budget kind of overview and look for guidance and concurrence from the board to build on that. And this tentative budget in front of you ties very closely all the way back to August when we presented. And then in November, we presented basically a draft, preliminary draft of the tentative budget. Probably 95% of the budget packet was there. This mirrors that exactly. The only real difference is we've added the detail for some of the capital projects. So we had the amounts and descriptions, but we didn't have the pretty pictures. They go a long way when we're looking for the budget award certification with GFOA. That's one of the big things. Makes it very easy to understand those individual capital projects. The only substantive financial changes between what we showed you in November and what's in front of you today is in November, we didn't know the outcome of that proposition going into that meeting and building that packet out. So we didn't include the additional, operating levy, from the PTEL. So as you now know, we have an additional 3.6 billion. That's how much the levy grew above and beyond what was allowed under PTEL. So in this tentative budget, you'll see an abatement for $3.6 billion of property levy, from the debt service fund, right? Because we're not going to take that to neutralize it. And then you'll see in the general fund, the property tax revenues grew by the same amount. So they've grown 3.6 billion more than what you saw in November. And then there's a permanent transfer from the general fund to pay that debt service, right? If we're abating it from the debt service levy. So now the debt service is short 3.6 million collected in the general fund and we pay it down. So it's neutral to the taxpayers. And as the board knows, we're going to do it again with the 25 levy this year, 26, 27. And then there's one other small change from November, and that was an additional $26,000 in grant revenue that wasn't known in the compiled November packet. So that's going to the Natural Resource Management Fund, and will fund a couple additional seasonals for.
No questions?
So after, a vote,
It's a large budget, so I mean.
yeah. And we didn't print
worked hard
out,
on that, getting
we
that
didn't print
put
this
together.
out, but if anybody would wish to have a printed copy, we're happy to do so, but it is the tentative. You will have a public hearing in February, and then you'll approve the final budget at that time before we go off to the county. Again, definitely for anybody who wants it, I just don't wanna,
Yeah, we're
waste
sure.
paper and that expensive, if it's not
But if
necessary.
you have a little time, yeah, you need to be gone through it.
Yeah, and the budget's approved in March, right, at the board?
It will be
County
at the
board?
March at the county, correct. We'll go through planning environmental development. And then from there on to the committee of the whole and then the regular meeting. And as we've done, I've sent out, there was a question that came up because I sent out a calendar invite to board members. And if you're available and would like to join us and can join us, we appreciate having you there. Again, good opportunity to connect with county board members, but just to support that process because it's one of the many key things that the board does, but getting the budget approved from a fiscal standpoint is essential for our operations.
One additional thing, if you remember, we did a pretty lengthy presentation in August and again in November.
Yeah.
If there's any new trustees that wanted to have a sit down with myself and Elizabeth, separate from a board meeting, we'd be glad to do that. We've done that many times. You can either go through a shortened version of that presentation or go right to the budget packet. So just reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it would be real handy, I think, because
6 cents.
there's a lot of moving parts and stuff in that, so. Good. Okay. We want to talk next about the comprehensive plan. The submittal of the grant funding proposal.
We do, and I'm gonna let John handle this. I've asked this is really important just to the board for background. It's our second highest overall organization priority from our strategic plan. Of course, those was one of those areas that as we went out to the proposition and asking the questions, this was one of the key pieces that we informed those that we would be looking towards this should we be successful to lay it out. So I will let John explain it. I've also asked that he be from the executive team, be the lead that is going to champion this and really great and excited for him to be able to do that.
Thank you. Elizabeth was sharing with me today that she took the number one priority and led that one. That was the ballot initiative. She got that done. So she's assigned this one to me, which is the number 2. I only have a few comments. Really, it's just a summary of what the board summary does say, highlights a couple of things. We talked with the board in July, brought this forth, brought the concept forth, chatted with you folks a little bit about it, kind of explained the ins and outs of what a comp plan was, how it's best practice, it's, grabbing community engagement and bringing them together. In a quick summary, it's a roadmap for this agency for the next 10 years, a comprehensive review of what it is that we're going to do. It's really a guide for allocating resources for the board of trustees, for staff to work together, and also to present that to the community that, hey, this is the direction we're going, this is where we're going to be allocating resources. That's what other agencies do with their comp plan. This agency had a partial comp plan at one point in time, a long time ago, really, but just, it wasn't comprehensive. It really just focused on site access. And we didn't update it. And so therefore, you know, we're now poised, ready to do some sort of full-on comprehensive plan. In July, one of the things I want to remind you guys that you asked were a couple of interesting things. One was, I think Ron asked about grant funding, and someone else asked about examples of those. The information in your packet tonight has links to what a comprehensive plan looks like. There are several examples in there. I found a couple. One, I think Cary Park District was thrown in there as an example. They are in the process of updating theirs. Theirs was from 2015. They are now in the process of updating their comp plan. I put an interesting one in there. I thought it was interesting when I looked at it. It was from Campton Hills, which is a rural community west of the Fox River, south of here. And they're probably a little bit like us in that they have a lot of land and not a lot of development. And so when I looked at it and I saw their process, I thought it was very similar to ours. So do look at that one. They all have a similar process that they go through and scope. I threw a couple of scopes in there as well, so you could see the depth and the breadth of what goes into that. You know, and our proposal is to use a consultant to do that kind of stuff, because that's not something that the staff has the resources to do. We need that outside help. So the funding concept, I think I answered the question last time that I didn't know of any grant sources that were out there that funded long-range strategic planning, comp planning, things like that. I had a couple of thoughts of places to look between Shauna Flavel with the McHenry County Conservation District Foundation, and we looked at about a dozen different options, concepts, things that we thought might align. We ruled out 10 of them pretty quickly because, you know, we weren't eligible. That wasn't, whenever I write a grant, it's really about, or whenever she writes a grant, it's about matching a project. This is our project to a program out there that funds it. And so she found a couple of them that are tied in some respects to it. And it's interesting enough, I think that it's worth, you know, putting the effort to see if we can find some funding. She and I chatted about it a little bit. We talked with Elizabeth about it. We feel both of those two programs, the sweet spot to ask for is somewhere around 75,000. And so I think that was what she said initially. I looked at the information and I totally agreed with her. Now they may come back after some initial discussions with them and say you need to be looking in the neighborhood of 50,000 or 25,000. You know, at that point in time, you know, when they say that kind of stuff, that means you really need to be lowering that, you know, to that level. So the two that are out there are the Blue Cross Blue Shield. It has a grant program, seems somewhat apropos to it. They don't directly align, but we might be able to make our project kind of align with what they're doing. And the other thing about that one is I think it has a little bit of an interest. It has that send a letter of inquiry or send a letter of interest first to kind of showcase that it's 1 page or 2 pages, and they'll give you a nod on whether they want to see your full application or not. So that one I think is due in a few weeks. So Sean and I have talked about that one a little bit as a possibility. The second one is with the McHenry County Community Foundation. That one looks like a possible funder as well. It's a little bit more involved, and they're not taking applications until fall. That's one of the problems with the grants that I do want to illustrate. It does slow this down. The timeline on this, you know, if we could hit the ground in April or May running with this, you know, we would be done probably, you know, late 26 or something like that. But this is, because we're looking for funding, we're going to have to extend this out into 27. It's about an 18-month process, start to finish. And we have to wait until the first grant says, yeah, you can go on it. And then we would be able to move forward probably midsummer is our target. I mean, that's when they said they would announce their, we couldn't start it until then, so probably mid to late summer, start this process. In the meantime, of course, we gotta do the scoping, and gotta do the grant writing, et cetera, so we'll be busy doing those things. And in fact, our intent is to actually go through the process and actually find the candidate we're gonna have them when they're ready. And as soon as the funding comes in, we would then, get moving on the project. Yes, Ron?
Yeah, John, and I saw that 75K, you had reference to 50. And about 3 or 4 questions popped into my mind. I just don't have the historical background. I was curious, what was the largest grant the Conservation District was ever awarded?
Oof.
Well,
With the land acquisition,
That's
so
the
private grants was the one for the.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was just trying to figure out a different.
different categories.
Right.
let's see. Yeah, there are grants that we've received for, there are land acquisition grants out there there was a 2 million grant once. Open Lands Trust Program, it was in the early 2000s. The state was giving money away. That was an example, it bought us a lot of land. We got a couple of those. So that is probably the biggest, at least I can remember being involved in. The smaller ones, they're 25,000, there was an $18,000 grant. Generally, my rule of thumb with our state and federal grants is don't mess around with them unless it's $100,000 you're going after, or certainly 80,000, because they have so many ins and outs. These grants are a little different than that. These private grants that are out there, they're a little less cumbersome, and they have less reporting, regular reporting and things like that. So I think you can go for smaller amounts.
I think, John, that the intent of the board at the time in November about looking at these grants was because at the time we didn't know what was happening with the initiative.
Yes.
So that might change a little bit as far as the board, we could take a look at it again and not say that we have to have grant funding to do that. We can discuss that too. And I guess I would, refer to Andy. I mean, can we shape our budget with now that we are getting those extra funds to allow some of this planning to take place?
Yeah, I think.
Am I right? I mean, that was the intent from the board at the time, I think.
Because the funding is budgeted in the 2026 budget as of April 1st. And so by the time you get an RFP out and then get the contract executed, we could be rolling. And we'd have to build up that framework of timing, but at least scope it. And we need a little bit ramp up time, but it could be started and waiting, so we have that.
I still think, if we can do them, do both, I don't know.
Well,
Right.
this is a project that I said it in July, I'll say it again. It's one of the most important projects this agency could be doing in the next 2 years. And these funding sources aren't guaranteed. Everybody knows that about grants. And if we want to move forward without waiting for the grants to come in, it may jeopardize the funding. But you guys direct us. Point is if we get zero money, I'm still gonna be standing up here asking for us to move forward on this project. Because to me, it's that important, and to this agency, it's that important.
And I think that was part of the discussion we had.
There's gonna be a lot of saving of time not having to write the grants anymore.
Yes, one of the biggest concerns I have about it is it's 2 pots of money. And we're gonna have to take, right now, these scopes are, this A to Z is what we need to do. That's what we want a contractor or a consultant to do. But the way we're gonna have to do that, because there are 2 grants involved at that 2 different timings, is we're gonna have to say, we want A to K here, and we want L to Z here. We want that grant to pay for this and this grant to pay for that. And there's gonna be a lot of, that's gonna be difficult.
Well, the Blue Cross Blue Shield one, sounds like it's a little bit more flexible. You can do that pre-letter or whatever. And then, why waste time if it's not gonna fit in their project scope, then
We may know pretty quickly.
you'll know pretty quickly possibly, so it's not a lot of effort there, hopefully, so. That might be one we still wanna take a look at
Mhm.
and venture towards, but, I just wanted to bring everybody's attention that, and maybe we can put this on the agenda, to take a better look at the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
We have to do that. But I think that was the main concern, was the funding.
Do we know what the estimated consultant's fee is? Is it
We-
200?
Yeah, we budgeted 200. That was,
For that position?
based on the Kane County agreement they had with their consultants. I'm not certain, this is kind of out of my
Yeah.
area of expertise. And it was a best projection at the time. Is it going to get it? I don't know.
Right.
I think with the consultant based on, again, there's some surveying kind of components that depending on what they do and how they do that. How much is shifted, for staff to lean into, again, so there's a lot to be determined. In the scope of services, and the proposals will help us determine how.
I think I was the one that requested that we maybe seek if there's any grant funding out there. And it was because I was shocked at 200,000. I mean, that was, we had just the month before argued about whether or not to put a patch on a roof for 1,400. So 200,000 kind of hit me. So that's why I asked about
You're
it.
right, yeah.
But, but if it gets that cumbersome, I hear what you're saying, but the two different grants and trying to coordinate it. I think Chris's point's a good one. Pursue the one with Blue Cross, and that doesn't seem to hinder us, and we get it great, if not, find on.
Okay.
So I guess, board director right now is, we need to put that on agenda to vote on it, or?
It
Well,
is,
Right, it will be on Tuesday night,
Okay.
move forward with the grant application, so.
Yeah,
And it is on consent agenda, so if there's a shift, then what we would do is someone would pull that from the consent agenda Tuesday. Restructure the motion, so that doesn't, and just whatever that looks like and bring it forward.
that will make things a lot easier, just trying for the one and seeing how it goes. And it doesn't slow us down. The one doesn't slow us down tremendously. The second one would.
right,
So,
because of the time frame, number
Yeah.
one, and then just that group. How they-
yes, that is absolutely correct. I mean, we should know, and I can't remember the exact date, but I'm gonna guess in 2 months, we will know whether that Blue Cross Blue Shield grant is anything that.
If it's a
for the
fit,
project.
yeah. Okay, yeah, and I think, with us waiting to see what was gonna happen with the election, the vote.
Sure.
A little bit, so. Okay,
All right, good enough.
we'll work on that.
All right, super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Change that. We'll pull that out of the consent agenda then and reorganize that. Anything else? Okay, without that, then we'll go with your executive director's report. Do you have anything?
Okay, I do have a few things I want to go through with everyone. One, you probably on social media, just so the board is informed, our Wildlife Resource Center had rehabbed and released a bald eagle that was identified or found at Pleasant Valley Conservation Area by one of our rangers.
Saw the video on
And
it.
then they rehabbed it and then released it back to the wild. We had a discussion at the foundation meeting again, because there was a request for a freezer, which they did agree for us to do at the Wildlife Resource Center to replenish that piece of equipment. But a great story. Unfortunately, the cause that's known was through rat poisoning. And so they had to nurse it back to health and through that, but a very great success story. It's gotten a lot of social media coverage on the video release. So I thought that was just, again, something that's done that many people may not be aware of what occurs, and there's great sightings. And of course, then with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, there's a whole In Search of Eagles program that'll be up and coming. And of course, we're seeing just great great showcasing of eagles coming back and nesting and all that. So great success stories on conservation. We'll talk and introduce you to Heather Schneider on Tuesday evening, who's our new education services manager. So again, she's been onboarded. Caitlin's done a great job with selection and getting her off and running. And obviously we're doing with other holes that we have, the marketing manager. So we're finalizing. We have second interviews tomorrow, and then we hope to be making a decision on that front. And then soon to come, the conservation ecology manager, and then we'll go back to the other position of the marketing coordinator, or the new title, I forget what we call the new title now.
Marketing and design.
In marketing and design coordinator, so that'll be up and coming. The executive leadership team, just to update the board, we are going to be doing, we do an annual retreat, and I think we talked about that. So after thinking in kind of plotting some themes here, our theme for the retreat is going to be from vision to impact, mapping our next chapter. And as we were plotting different concepts that we wanted to lead the leadership team through in conversation, Gabe very articulately mapped, and we were looking for resources and materials to guide our conversation. So everybody's going to be, they haven't read Good to Great by Jim Collins. That is kind of what we are
Wonderful
working
book.
through, and using that for building our retreat. And really, I think it's a great place for us to kind of look forward with organizational transformation that's going on. Obviously, coming out of a successful ballot measure, but really for the first time, having that opportunity to think again, aligning the comp plan that we're talking about, and really what is it going to look like. So again, we're jazzed about that, and the new team members that are coming on board, and blending of those that have the legacy that have been here a while, but also with the new energy and bringing that together. And then next week we'll be at the Illinois State Conference for Parks and Recreation. Thank you, Trustee Zeller, for joining us. And so she will be present. We have several staff that will be presenting during the conference, and we have two legislators that will be joining us at our table. Senator DeWitt and Representative Ness will be joining with us, and then Representative Sosnowski is going to be sitting with the Village of Huntley Park District. Kind of like we rotate all. So it's always a good time to connect with them. And then Trustees Treasurer Zimmerman has volunteered to attend the IAB legislative breakfast with me. So if anybody else is interested in going, that's in Vernon Hills in February on a Friday. You're welcome to join us for that too. And that's all.
Good, great, thank you.
Where's the retreat at? Where you go?
We are in the process of determining our location.
Oh.
So.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. 9.0 public comments number 2.
I'm
Anybody
not
else?
seeing any raised hands online.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I forgot to mention one more thing too.
Sure.
Well, two things actually. One, great job to thank you, President Dom and Trustee Leahy for attending the breakfast with our leaseholders at the Farm Bureau yesterday morning. A great showing and a great presentation by Brennan Ness, and just great information. And the speaker was phenomenal on farm legacy. So I'll let you guys speak on your part of that, but I thought it was well done and nice. And then in the PR, if you've received this came out, and I have to give a shout out again to Caitlin and to Brenna, and then working with our relationship with Trickster, we have an article that was featured on our relationship beyond words on our land acknowledgement statement.
What page is that on?
Not
This is on page 20.
I'm sorry, not everybody received one for some reason. But
We can get extras or
You're right.
whatever for that.
I have it in my office that I get that someone can have.
Very cool.
So anyhow. Good job.
There you go, Galen.
Yeah, nice, good job.
Well, Brenna and Jackie and nurturing that relationship with Trickster.
The trickster. Nice. Okay, I guess, anything else that needs to be brought up tonight? So we're all good.
Nobody's
So-
raising their hand online.
Thank you. There wasn't anybody?
There was nothing.
Need a motion to go to executive? We do. If someone wants to.
Move to, go into executive.
One second there.
Oh, you guys say a little line.
Like,
We get pursuant to two
Oh,
C
pardon.
one personnel, two C
Oh,
five,
okay.
purchase and lease of real property.
What do you
Two
say?
C 21 review of closed session minutes of the Open Meetings Act. So, okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Trustee Zeller,
Yes.
trustee Leahy,
yes.
trustee Zurich,
Yes.
trustee Wazorek,
Yes.
vice president Everard.
Yes.
And president Dom.
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, so we'll go into executive session on those items and thank you for all coming. Okay, so we are ready. May I have a motion to adjourn?
You have to do roll call again.
Or do
I
you have
need
to-
I need to do roll call.
Oh, back, to
Sorry.
come back in.
Oh, correct.
That's right, I'm sorry.
President Dom,
Yes.
vice president Everard,
Yes.
trustee Wazorek,
Yes.
trustee Leahy,
Yes.
trustee Zurich,
Yes.
and trustee Zeller.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're back in. Now we can move to adjourn. I,
Oh.
second, Mike second.
Hey, trustee Zeller,
Yes.
trustee Zurich,
Yes.
I'm sorry, secretary Wazorek,
Yes.
vice president Everard,
Yeah.
trustee Leahy,
Yes.
and president Dom.
Yes. Adjourn.